Giannis has been traded. We got to break this down right now. So we've been waiting multiple years for this trade to happen. It finally happened. We got to look at the details. I just got back from the movie theaters and found out that Giannis Antetokounmpo is now a member of the Miami Heat. So the Bucks will receive Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparas Yakachunas, and 3 first-round picks in a deal that includes this year's 13th overall pick. The draft is tomorrow. The Heat will also receive Bobby Portis along with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So their front line, at least on paper, looks solid, right? That's done. You got Bobby Portis, who's going to be most likely the backup 4, but obviously you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you got Bam Adebayo as your starting 4 and 5. Great, got it. The rest of the team, we'll see how that shakes out. I still think the Heat need to make a couple of the moves. Obviously, you still have an all-star there with Norman Powell, some other nice pieces, but championship pieces, not really. We'll see how they do that. Look, before we get to talking about the actual teams involved and the team not involved in the Boston Celtics, I really want to dive deep into just 2 players because as you guys who watch this have gotten to know me and the way I think, what's really been on my mind is been a big annoyance with the way this has been covered, mainly by everybody, okay? And I'm just going to get right into it. First and foremost, Giannis, okay? This guy has wanted out of Milwaukee pretty much for the past 2 years. Yes, he's tried to shift it and control the narrative in a way to make it seem like he loves Milwaukee and he loves the city, but it's been one of those situations where like you're like dating someone and you don't want to break up with them, so you try to not be the bad guy, but really it's just better if you just pull the Band-Aid off, right? Just break up with them. And Giannis has been tiptoeing this game of like, really, I want to be in Milwaukee, but I also want to compete with a championship. I'm not sure if Milwaukee's the place to compete for a championship, but I love the city of Milwaukee. Like, dude, just say it. It's fine. Like, I honestly think his intention is that he wants to stay beloved in Milwaukee. But, dude, you don't want to be there anymore. So it's going to be hard. Like, that's it. Like, you either choose to be the Dirk Nowitzki and stay there your whole career and be beloved forever, or this is the route that you're going to go and just do it. So many players have done this route. So many players have asked out. And even some players, look at Vince Carter, are still loved in Toronto, and he didn't even get Toronto a ring, right? So that part was really annoying. And I'm a Giannis fan. I think he's an awesome basketball player, but I've not been a fan of the way he handled this whole trade request, not request. And also, to that extent, I'm kind of, I don't want to say bothered, but this goes to an example of how the NBA handles its superstars and how, in my opinion, NBA teams, quite frankly, cater too much to the players in these situations. The Bucks pretty much sacrificed their future in so many moves to just make Giannis happy. For what? So that Giannis could still be disloyal and want to leave you. Like, he wasn't going to sign, Shams reported it, he wasn't going to sign an extension this summer and commit long-term to Milwaukee. And ultimately, now Milwaukee's stuck with having to pay Dame Lillard pretty much $20 million a year that is going for not Dame Lillard because he's not on the team anymore. They waived and stretched Dame Lillard. So for the next 4 or 5 years, they are paying $20 million to Damian Lillard. He is on their books, which is just ridiculous. And they made that move to appease Giannis because Dame Lillard got hurt. And guess who's the one that was clamoring to have Dame Lillard on the team? It was Giannis. So that's the part. That's like, back to the relationship analogy. That's like somebody asking their girl to, hey, I need this from you. I need that from you. I need you to be this way for me. And the girl or the guy, whichever way, does it. And then you still leave them. And that's what Milwaukee was doing, right? They wave and stretch Dame because he's injured. He's going to be out. And we got to win right now because Giannis wants to win. So let's do that and put ourselves in a minus $20 million a year disadvantage for the next 4 or 5 years, for the foreseeable future. So we can try to win right now for this guy Giannis. And let's bring in Miles Turner and give him a contract just to try to make Giannis happy. And after 1 year of all that sacrifice, it didn't work out. He doesn't want to commit long-term. He's out. So come on now. So a lot of these times we always say like, oh, well, the organization didn't show a willingness to win, to want to win. Well, this is one of those examples where the organization did show a willingness to win. They showed every single willingness they could have done to try to make Giannis happy, and he still walked. And again, and he tried to make it seem like he didn't want to walk. Well, if he didn't want to walk, all he had to say is, I never want to be traded. The Bucks have done everything and anything I've asked. And quite frankly, they bent over backwards, put their future in a, sacrificed their future, not knowing if I'd be around for me. So I want to be here. He could have said that. So miss me with the whole, like, he's loyal to Milwaukee. No, he's not. So that's number one. And I think, frankly, one of the reasons that the Bucks decided to go in this direction and trade with the Heat and go young with 3 first-round picks. Khalil Ware is a nice young, piece. Jaime Jaquez is relatively young. Yakachunas is young. Tyler Hero ain't old. So they went young and sacrificed some winning right now with this trade. Quite frankly, I think because they're aware that for the next 4 years, like I said, they are at a $20 million a season disadvantage from the other teams, pretty much. If the NBA cap, what's the salary cap? NBA's salary cap. The NBA salary cap is set for $165 million, and that's what every team gets to play with, pretty much. Well, the Bucks don't get 165; they get 145 right away. So $20 million just gone, and that's how they're supposed to build their roster. And mind you, Giannis is taking up about 50 to 60 million of that. So good luck. Good luck. When you got other teams that have drafted well, you look at the Spurs, obviously, and that's a team in the West. I get it, but they ain't even paying their top 3 players. So I think one of the reasons the Bucks went this direction is because they said to themselves, look, if we try to go win now and get Jaylen Brown instead, yeah, he's a better player right now than these young pieces are going to be. And we may be a better team next year, maybe win an extra 5 to 10 games next season with an all-star like Jaylen Brown. But is that going to be championship worthy when we got $20 million going to Dame Lillard, who's on the Portland Trail Blazers? No. So I think it's a smart move by the Bucks to try to salvage this situation, which, again, at the end of the day, if I was a Bucks fan, I feel like Giannis still let me down. I don't care how many nice things he'll say or what the post is going to be. Thank you, Milwaukee, whatever. You wanted to go. And that's cool, man. But don't give us this runaround of I wanted to stay loyal to Milwaukee. If you did, the Bucks were ready to give you an extension and you would have stayed loyal. Now, switching gears to the Celtics and Jaylen Brown. That's the other player I want to talk about. Because the media narrative suddenly has become, well, what's it going to be like in Boston? How's Jaylen Brown going to feel now that he's been put on the trade block by the Boston Celtics? No. Jaylen Brown put himself on the trade block, okay? First of all, Jaylen Brown, since pretty much I could remember at this point, has been playing this sorry role of, oh, Jason Tatum, they don't even love me here, or yeah, like Boston fans, blah, blah, blah. And yes, he's been great in the community and whatnot, but you can't deny the fact that he's always seemed a little salty of the love that Jason Tatum gets. And you know why? Because Jason Tatum has never really cared to give Jaylen Brown the front and center stage in the spotlight if he's playing better. And look, yes, at the same time, I do think that the fan base has, for some reason, had more of a love for Jason Tatum, right? Because I think with Tatum, obviously, is when, the winning started. He, for the most part, has been a better player than Jaylen Brown, and that's just what happens. I'm sorry. The better player gets more love. Guess what? With the Warriors, Steph Curry got more love than Klay Thompson, right? So, but I didn't see Klay Thompson being all salty that Steph Curry was the front and center of the franchise. Nah, they won championships, plural, together because Klay Thompson understood that the best chance of winning is to take the back seat, let Steph be the driver, and occasionally when Steph needed him, Klay, game 6, this is you, take us home. And he did that, right? He played his role terrific, and that's why they won championships. Jaylen Brown had one season where Jason Tatum was injured. He took the steering wheel, and he didn't want to give it back, and he made it known at the end of the season. This year, they get knocked out in the second round of the playoffs to the Philadelphia 76ers. And you got Jason Tatum over there talking about how I think it was the first round he got knocked out by the Philadelphia 76ers, right? Sixers, Celtics. I can't believe my memory is going already. But Let's see. First round. Yeah. First round, 7-game series. The Celtics lose, right? In game 7 at home. And suddenly, Jaylen Brown is hopping on a Twitch stream or whatever, claiming how this was his favorite season. You won a title, my guy. You were NBA Finals MVP, man. And this was your favorite season? Yeah, what do you think that's saying? Then he gets into this beef with Stephen A, who, like him or not, Stephen A was right to say, like, well, where's Jason Tatum? He ain't hopping on your podcast or Twitch stream or whatever. And Jaylen Brown looked like the salty, jealous guy who finally got a chance to drive the car. And this was supposed to be a road trip where we would each get a turn at driving the car and getting us there. And you decided to drive it, and you didn't even get us to the destination by yourself because we were out in the first round. And yes, Tatum did come back, so that's blame on Tatum as well. But I'm just saying that when you were the lead, when you were the main character in the movie, the team did worse than when you were the co-star. Sorry, it is what it is. But you got, ego happy. You love the attention. Now you wanted your own team, and you kind of made that known. So I just don't want to hear this narrative about, how's Jaylen Brown going to feel that the Celtics put him on the trade block. No, Jaylen Brown put himself on the trade block. Okay? So the Celtics could have traded Jaylen Brown years ago, right? And they didn't. And look, also at the same time, every player is expendable, okay? Because right now, if the Spurs offered Victor Wembanyama to the Celtics for Jason Tatum, the Celtics would and better do that. They should do that in a heartbeat, right? So even Jason Tatum is expendable. So don't act like you're bigger than basketball or like most important person in the whole East Coast. It's business. This is how it goes. And you asked for this. So that's my take on that. All right, back to the trade now. We can talk about the team. So obviously with the Heat, yes, they're going to be the main conversation after this trade obviously is completed because they're getting Giannis. And I will say this. I do think they have a nice roster. They're fine, but their potential starting lineup obviously has some holes. I mean, your starting point guard is Davion Mitchell. Taking a look here. So point guard, yep, Davion Mitchell. Obviously, Norm Powell. I think Norm is a fine starter. Definitely. I don't mind him. Do I think you could win if he's your third best player? Yes. I kind of lean towards yes, especially if, you got Giannis and Bam Adebayo and Norman Powell. That's fine. But the pieces around that got to be better. They got to be essentially equivalent to Norm Powell, in my opinion. So Davion Mitchell, nice piece, but he's a backup point guard. He ain't cutting it at starting point guard. Andrew Wiggins, honestly, role player at this point. This is not a starting 3 guy, right? I mean, look at the Knicks. You're going to put OG Anunoby or Andrew Wiggins. Who are you going to rely on most? Well, it's not going to be Andrew Wiggins, right? So those are a few pieces, obviously, that I think they need to improve on. Now, depth-wise, I think they'll have to, get some free agents on the cheap. I think they'll have to maybe get some guys if they can. I'm not sure if they're in the second apron or not. I don't think they are, but because Tyler Hero did have a pretty hefty salary. But again, their front court is going to be fine. You got Giannis, you got Bam, and you got Bobby Portis coming back in that deal. So that's fine. But you need guys that can shoot. You need shooting guards. You need small forwards. You need a point guard. Okay. And I don't know who that is, but I mean, the first name that came to mind, because I know that the Spurs don't want him there, is De'Aaron Fox, but I don't think you can fit De'Aaron Fox in this roster with all these big salaries. So you're going to need to fill that somehow with some on the cheaper end point guard. And this isn't the same era as, when it was the big 3 and stuff, where it was like the 3 big superstars, and then you could just kind of plug in some random guys in there to be the point guard. You could have a Mario Chalmers just be the point guard, and it would be fine. Norris Cole would play and you'd be fine. It ain't that type of game anymore, right? I mean, if you look at the Knicks and look at that roster, obviously that's the gold standard of an NBA roster right now. I mean, the whole really is who? Mikal Bridges? That's the worst player on that starting lineup? Is it OG? It's not OG, right? Cat? Who? I mean, again, it's Josh Hart, I guess you would say. But even that, like I said, Josh Hart, sure, that's your one piece that maybe on a different roster might not be a starter, but he would be the 6th man. So again, it's just one of those things where, like with Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins, those guys aren't even guaranteed 6 mans on roster, right? If you put those guys on the Knicks, I still don't know that either one of those guys is coming off the bench first. So, they got some depth pieces to fill in. I don't think that this makes them favorites. I would pick the Knicks still if they were to face off in the series. But I do think it puts them in the, top 4 in the East, home court, and, maybe the 4 seed, 3 seed, maybe. And obviously at that point, it depends on matchups. And again, it's, we'll see. But Giannis is also getting a year older. So I'm not in love with this trade for the Heat because you are suddenly in a win now window and you got to make it happen and fill those holes. And you got to, do it effectively and essentially with no draft capital. I mean, you got, even there was just a trade where OKC traded Aaron Wiggins. That's a piece that maybe would have been nice, right? Or someone like that to have. Or a Kason Wallace maybe is a piece that you bring in to be your lead guard, maybe. An AJ Mitchell, which I doubt the Thunder will trade. That's the type of guy that you could maybe plug in as your starting point guard and hope that he elevates his game. So we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, time will tell, but I don't automatically think this means the Heat are going to win the East next year. I don't think that. And again, Giannis has had trouble staying healthy. So we'll see. Now, Milwaukee, like I said, I actually think they did well. I really do. You get 3 first-round draft picks. Yes, and now with the way the lottery is, listen, at this point, all you really need is, and listen, I'm still trying to understand the exact new rules of the lottery, but you need, what you don't want is a team to be between the 3rd worst record, I believe, and the 10th worst record, because that's what's called like the relegation zone or whatever. And that's where they have less of a chance of getting a high pick. So technically, if the Heat, there's an injury or something, and they barely miss the playoffs, they actually have a better chance now of getting a high pick than they would if they were the 6th worst record in the league. So at that point, if they're the, if they're the 12th, 13th team in the lottery order because, there was an injury, knock on wood, or something that didn't break for them, and now they're out of the playoffs, that potentially now could become a really top pick, like a top 5 pick or something. And so those picks for a team that might be on the fringes, the Heat, you better be sure that you're making the playoffs for sure. All these seasons that you've got a draft pick, essentially, that you're giving up to Milwaukee. So, and aside from that, like I said, Tyler Hero, I think, still has obviously some value. I like Yakuchunas. He played sparingly, but he's solid. Jaime Jaquez is a solid role player. Khalil Ware, promising. Remember, he was just a rookie, so this kid could become something. So essentially, and he was a first-round pick too. So you're almost getting like 4 first-rounders because he's still on a nice deal and he's relatively young. And again, Tyler Hero, if you ever want to flip him, he's a piece that could help a contending team that needs a shooter, right? That essentially, the funny thing is, obviously, you have to give up something to get something. But if Tyler Hero was on the Heat right now, if you added a player like that with Giannis and Bam, that would be great. And that's what you would be looking for. But obviously, they won't even be able to really afford someone like that. So they need to find a shooter like that they could plug in to help them. So we'll see how the Heat end up, ensembling the rest of the roster. The Bucks, like I said, I think did pretty solid here in salvaging a crappy situation for them. Honestly, like I feel for the Milwaukee fan base because I could see this coming, because this is what happens when teams start to cater to these superstars and mortgage their future for them and make GM level decisions for these guys just to try to win now, when really at the end of the day, they ain't going to be loyal either. And there's very few, and there's almost none at this point in the NBA that are willing and wanting to genuinely spend their whole careers with a team. Even Jalen Brunson taking a discount to stay with the Knicks, that doesn't happen, right? And that's one of my favorite things about Jalen Brunson. He really did put team first. Giannis, I feel like, said he was putting team first, but he was putting himself first by wanting to just win right now. Because if he would have allowed the organization, if he would have just said, you know what, look, every team has its window where they, hopefully have a championship window, then they might have to retool. And 3-4 years down the line, they have another championship window, and I'm willing to wait it out because I trust our front office. Guess what would have happened then? They wouldn't have done that Dame Lillard deal. They wouldn't have waived and stretched him when they did. They wouldn't not have traded away Drew Holiday in that offer, which maybe at some point they would have had to trade Drew Holiday, but they maybe would have been able to get something younger for him that would have fit better, let's say, with Giannis. They also wouldn't have then paid Miles Turner, who didn't end up working out with the Bucks, really. And he's probably going to get traded now too, which, again, for the Bucks, smart. You take the hit now. You try to build around Hero and these young guys in the draft picks and, see if Hero pops off and can take his game to the next level. And if he can't, you definitely can swing and get another first rounder at the very least for Tyler Hero. So, look, yes, normally the team that gets the best player in the deal wins the deal. But if the Heat, which I'm not quite sure are going to win a title in the next 2 or 3 years because they got some roster building and roster construction to do. Now, Heat culture, I won't put it past them because Pat Riley and those guys are about their business. But if they don't win a title, I'm going to tell you the Bucks won this trade because at the end of the day, it's asset management, right? And yes, the way to win a trade is by winning championships. Mikal Bridges and the Knicks win the title, and suddenly the 4 first-round picks, F them picks, right? The 4 first-round picks are forgotten that they traded away from Mikal Bridges. But in reality, asset management, it's just not smart in that moment because you probably could have gotten that for less. And that's the thing, I guess. That's like, sure, you may be happy in your $1 million house, but if you paid $1 million for a house that really is worth $750,000, you still, got a bad deal on it, but you're happy in the house. So, both things can end up being true. And that's what I think is the Mikal Bridges situation. And that's what I think would happen if the Heat win a title because they did give up a lot. Don't forget that. Jaime Jaquez is also a first-round pick. So, and yes, he hasn't become a superstar first-rounder. Khalil Ware, no one thinks he's going to be an all-star next season, but he's got the potential to, right? And so the Bucks, again, I think they did fine to salvage this crappy situation that I'm not trying to resolve them of the mistakes because they put themselves in this situation by willing to do anything and everything for Giannis. And I'm just putting that out there for other teams. In my mind, your biggest asset is your franchise, right? That's the way I see it. It's not your players because at the end of the day, time and time again, like it's proven here, the players are going to do what's best for them. And I don't blame the players because it's your career. If your goal is to win championships and you don't want to wait it out while the team rebuilds, totally cool. I just don't like the fakeness of pretending that that's not what you want. Like, nah, just be real. I would respect you more if you just say, look, I love basketball. It's my passion. I want to win championships, and I don't have the patience. I'm in my 30s now to sit through 3 years of a rebuild. I would like to go somewhere where I could win. I'm sorry to let the fan base down, but that's the truth. If I was a fan of that team, I would have way more respect for someone like that. That's why Raptor fans, in my opinion, just have respect for Kawhi. He went in there. You won your championship, and he didn't stay, and that's fine that he didn't stay, right? He wanted to go home. Do I think it was a mistake that he left? No. He was a free agent. He was right to go. People are like, he could have stayed, and they would have won more championships. Maybe, but who cares? At the end of the day, the guy wanted to do what was best for him and his family, what would make him happy. He was a free agent. Do what you got to do, man. But he didn't sell us on some fakeness of, man, I really wanted to stay in Toronto, but, blah, blah, blah. No, he wanted to go home. He said it. He was honest. He was straight up about it, and that's what happened. Respect. And he has Toronto's respect. And that's the one thing that Giannis talks about it, but I don't think he walked it in this situation. So, again, I'm still a fan of Giannis, the basketball player, of course. I think he's goofy and funny. But I don't like the way he handled this. And again, I haven't liked the way Jaylen Brown has handled this. And now the way the media is trying to kind of vouch for Jaylen Brown, like as if the Celtics did wrong by Jaylen Brown. What? And I don't even think it's Jaylen. I'm not blaming Jaylen Brown. Like, he didn't do wrong either, technically. Like, hey, you don't want to, give up the keys, the steering wheel, that's fine. Sure, you got a taste of it. You don't want to give up the car anymore to Tatum. You want to go drive your own car and go get traded to a franchise where you're going to take control, Atlanta, wherever, go for it. That's fine. But the media defending Jaylen Brown, like, how's he going to feel? Well, he put himself in this situation. He volunteered himself to be traded with the way he's been acting and how salty he's been, being and just be straight up, man. That's the way I am, and I think you guys get that vibe. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the trade. Obviously, the NBA draft's coming up, so we'll have to talk about that. See what happens. I anticipate more trades will happen. So we'll see. Maybe Miles Turner gets traded by tomorrow too, because maybe this is the Bucks just moving to try to be younger and rebuild through the draft, and that would be smart at this point. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon on the next one. Hope you enjoyed the podcast.